Hey everybody, Stephen Joy here. I'm just inking out a map, so thought I'd stream it. I do a podcast. I haven't done one in a while, so I thought maybe I could combine inking out a map and a podcast kind of deal. I don't know. So this is my second attempt at it. The first one I did, I said some silly things, so I thought, nah, I won't even bother. But this is the map I inked out. You can see it here. But I'm going to ink another one today. So I thought I'd just hang out and talk. Don't really think it's more complicated than that. So big shout out to everybody on Patreon. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it. And if you want to check out my maps, you can check me out at mstephanjoy.com. That's with a PH. And or at mstephanjoy for Twitter, or Dungeons and Cartoons on Tumblr, or I don't even know what I am on Instagram. I'm on Instagram anyway. But I mostly hang out on Twitter. And I'm on Facebook as well at stephenjoy.com. You can find me on Facebook. So yeah, there's all the blah blah blah. But yeah, a big shout out to everybody on Patreon. Thank you guys for your pledges and supporting me and everything in doing this. And I thought I'd just stream this, because I get asked all the time, how do I make my maps and stuff, and well, this doesn't really show how I make them, but it'll show me inking it anyway, and just sit here and blah blah blah, talk about whatever comes into my mind, yeah, there we go, that's it. So I'm gonna start off with just a minute, I need a piece of paper here to make sure my pen is working. As you can see, I can bump my camera. That's always a good thing. Have my camera right bump ready. So I am going to I have to plan this out. I kind of need a strategy here. So this is a modular style dungeon that I'm doing here. The idea being there'll be a whole series of these, and you can basically mix and match them. So they begin with stairs, and they always have a stair part in them, which can go down or up depending whatever you want. And you just have the players enter some part of the dungeon. You have to fill the dungeon out. And I'm going to be leaving the doors and stuff empty, or I'm not going to be drawing doors in the places where doors could be, because I think if you play with Roll20, it's a lot easier to add icons for doors, right? So instead of having them just fixed, because then if the door is fixed, it makes it more difficult, because you can't remove the door because it's actually stuck on the map. Whereas if it's on a layer or it's an icon, you can just move it off. So as you can see, like on this map, that's what I did. You can put doors anywhere that you might want them. Doesn't really matter, but I didn't draw them on. But I'll be drawing some doors for this set of maps, so that people that use Roll20 can drop them in, and people that want to print these, if anybody wants to print them, they can use photo editing like Photoshop or Paint.net or GIMP or whatever it is that they use, and then they can make a layer and they can drop the doors in wherever they want, and that way it'll suit the style, and that way they can put the maps, they can kind of customize it the way that they might want it to be. Yeah, so that's the idea there. So I might as well get started here. And so what I'm doing here is just an outline around some key parts that I wanna begin with. I'm gonna draw the sorry, when I have to concentrate, I kinda will get a little bit quiet. Can't help that, really. But I'll try and keep talking. So oh, nice. There's a nice ridge in my table right there. That should help things out a bit. Okay. So I'm just going to fill in the statues first. Just because I like to start with the hardest things first. Now I already penciled all of this stuff in, so you may notice that. You can see the pencils. I always start with pencils. I don't draw directly with ink because you can't, once it's drawn, you can't really erase it. So with ink you can't, there's no undos except in when I go into Photoshop. Sometimes I can undo a thing that was done poorly. Now this is difficult because unfortunately my pencil is a little thinner than my felt, so I'm losing some detail here that I wanted, but you know, that's how it goes. So I'm using Sharpies, which I'm sure most of you are aware. I use Sharpies a lot, which I feel kind of vindicated. I was on Twitch the other day and I was watching one of my favorite artists, comic book artist Jim Lee, and out came Sharpies, and I was like, yay! I was very happy to see he uses Sharpies. So I don't feel so badly using Sharpies now. But I guess kind of like comic book art, this is sort of disposable art, I guess. Just draw it and don't really need it once it's drawn and I've scanned it and everything. So yeah, just got to get this fine detail in there. There's a lot more detail happens later, you'll see. This is probably going to be a fairly long video. It's kind of awkward. I kind of feel like I'm talking to myself. It's hard to envision, but there's going to be, you know, a horde of at least 2-3 people listening to this, I suppose. We're watching it. Yeah. So, yeah, I like the idea of modular dungeons. I mean, my whole purpose in making dungeons and stuff has always been to try and make the GM's life easier. I mean, that's sort of the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. I want to make it so that a busy GM can have the time, or so I can reduce their prep time and make it a lot easier for them to create adventures just really quickly. That's one of the reasons for my tile system too, is because it's kind of a quick and easy way to just create dungeons right on the go, which I find very helpful personally. And so I try and that's the other thing, is I try and make stuff that I find useful or helpful, because then I figure other people will hopefully find it helpful too, although everybody's got a different style of GMing. So what I find helpful or might think is helpful, somebody else might think, you know, that's not very helpful. So, but you know, I hope people find it helpful. So, okay, I keep bumping the camera. That's probably not very good. Take off my sweater. It's too hot in here. Oh, starting to warm up. It was in the minus. It was like minus 31 at one point last week, but now it's gotten really warm. And it does make a difference to the house. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is outline it. And then you'll be able to see sort of what's going on a lot better. Ooh. And there we go. Mess up. Yep, I am not. You know, sometimes my hands obey me quite readily, and sometimes not so much. And I should really do a warm-up drawing before I just get right into things. It would be smarter if I did that, but I don't. So I've already got one Photoshop edit to do on this map. Which is unfortunate. I try to get them as perfect as I need, but that isn't always possible. Yeah, so the idea here is that a GM can just add this in anywhere they want. So, for example, I'll finish this part. Here. So this would be stairs coming in. So this would be stairs coming in, probably, or they could be going out. I mean, it's entirely up to. But you see on this map here, I have an entrance coming in here, and then I've got stairs here. So you can have these stairs connect with these stairs if you want. So this could be level 1, right? And then you have level 2 here, and you can have level 2 starts here and goes there, and then you just, you know, use them any way that you want, mix and match. These will be, I'll be making these for Roll20 too. Or should I say Roll20 as well. As far as I know, there is no Roll22. And so if you want to put them into a digital map, you can, or a digital virtual tabletop. It should be possible. So these are, I'm drawing these on a larger scale than I usually do. It's just going to let me get in a little more detail, plus it's going to make coloring them a little bit easier. So I want to get, I've just released a whole bunch of black and white dungeons. I don't know why exactly. I don't remember my thinking in that. But anyway, I think it was just an experiment. I wanted to try out black and white for a bit, and I wanted to color them, but I sort of ran out of time. Maybe I'll go back and color them, but these ones I'm definitely gonna color. And I want to do, I'm hoping to find sort of a map style, a dungeon style that I'm going to stick with, and I think this is probably it. Now that isn't to say I'm not going to do that I'm not going to make tiles anymore, because of course I am. They're just going to be, actually I kind of like that overlapping there. I think I'm going to keep that. That'll be kind of interesting. All right. I'll keep making the tiles because I love the tiles. Plus they work with Roll20 too, so I think that they're probably helpful for people that play with Roll20 that want a hand-drawn design. Don't want them looking all CGI. Not that there's anything wrong with CGI, it's just a different look. So this is a secret passage. Oh great, I'm getting a migraine. Nice. Oh well. Luckily for me, I don't get the headaches, I just get the upset stomach and the flashes in the eyeball. So as you can see, I do just about everything by hand. I will correct mistakes though. This corner here, as you can see, there's a little piece that because that what happened was I just started drawing. I should have done a whole bunch of shapes and gotten my hand ready. I'm fine now, but I just kind of because my hand wasn't warmed up enough. So I'm gonna go over the first dungeon here in a bit in a few minutes. The first one that I showed on camera, just to give you some of my thoughts on it. Because as I draw dungeons, I try and come up with stories a little bit, you know, what might be going on in the dungeon. Just I think it's interesting to do that. So, and I think if I kind of have a scenario in my head, I think it makes it easier for GM. It's gonna get hard. It's hard for me to get used to that map or that camera being there. So I'm gonna be hand drawing the grids on these two. I won't be doing that on camera, but it will be happening. Yeah, my hand is now warmed up. I really should have done that. Next time. Next time for the next video. So this is a little different than my podcast, I guess. I was hoping maybe I could combine the two, but I can see that concentrating on drawing the map is going to be a bit of a distraction, so it's probably going to end up being a little bit longer, actually. But I can still talk about books I've read, how they can be put into the games or whatever, I think. And map ideas that I have. Okay, so there we go. I've just got it outlined right now. I'm gonna talk about this map just because I'm thinking about it right now. So here's my thinking on it. My thinking is that this is probably the entrance, although you could enter here, and if you wanted, there's statues. And the thing I like about here is that when you come in, there's a statue. These statues are staring across from each other. So my thinking is that maybe if they can see each other, then there's you know, that's the default, and then if something obstructs their view, then it would set off some kind of a trap. And what I'm thinking is maybe it would either animate the statues, or maybe this statue might attack, because as you can see, this one's kind of pushed out into the hall a little ways, so it makes sense to me if it would step out and maybe attack whatever's there, and maybe it knows something's there because it can't see its friend, or its view is obstructed or something like that. Or the other possibility that I like is lasers. And this thing could just be a shooting gallery, and basically players can run through it, or they have to block maybe the statue's sight on each other in order to get through. And then the other part of this map that I thought was fun is over here. This part is all caved in, and yet there's a little bit of an open piece that somebody could dig through to and find. So it's kind of like a hidden. Now I put a lot of these. I've done this before, and I put a lot of these on my maps. So I guess players, if they get used to my maps, would know that maybe they should dig here. But the thing I love about digging, and this is why I put them in my dungeons, is that they take time, right? So it's a great time waster. Keeps the players in the dungeon, which gives me a time to roll for monsters. Plus it makes a lot of noise digging, right? Plus it means the PCs are going to want to bring tools with them, and it also makes tools really important to the game, because you can ask, they say, well, we want to dig through there. You say, well, did you bring a shovel? Right? How many adventuring parties remember to bring a shovel, right? If you don't bring a shovel, then the time that it takes to dig through there would be a lot. Oh, I'm going to use my shield, and you risk the chance of ruining your shield, breaking it. Not to mention, it's going to take a lot longer to dig through something with a shield than a shovel. So you can double, triple the time. It's going to be a lot noisier. That kind of thing. So there's a lot of reasons to have little hidden things like this in there. You know, aside from it just being a really fun place to hide treasure. Or maybe a coffin could be in there. You could put like a vampire hidden in here. Maybe the vampire, oh, what is it? Vampires have to sleep in fresh earth? Yeah, so they can cross it. So maybe there's some secret way through here, you know, that the vampire doesn't, or that the vampire knows PCs are unaware of, or he's got some way. Maybe there's a little crevice. If the vampire can turn into mist, it can move through and then form itself on the other side and get going, but it's, you know, it's in the rocks or something like that, so the players can't find it. So that's my idea there. And then this over here, I'm not sure what this is. It was just a neat shape, so I thought I'd throw it on there. And you know, this is a great place for a GM to add their own icon for a statue or something if they want, that kind of thing. Yeah. So anyway, just thought I'd show you that map and talk about it a bit. So now this is what happens to my can you see that? My markers. It isn't that they so much wear out, it's that the tips get kind of blunted, which is kind of annoying because then the lines get too thick, right? Which sometimes is a good thing. If I have to color in a whole area or something like that, then that can be useful. I have to erase these lines when I go to scan this. They'll show up. It's better to erase them now when there isn't fine lines. So the finer felt lines can actually kind of get a little bit faded from erasing, so I like to get all the erasing stuff off now. Alright, so I like to keep the lines on the outside of dungeons nice and thick, but then I can yeah, I really did just do that freehand. Not highly recommended, but I do that all the time because I needed a platform. Plus, if you do it freehand like that, then the nice thing about it is you can't get your lines completely straight, which is actually, I think, more aesthetically pleasing, right? This should be a statue just in an alcove. I don't think I'm gonna put, no, I think maybe I should. All right. I am going to make aha! So that one's kind of broken apart there. For no other reason than it just jumped into my head and I thought it would be cool. Now that's going to make players wonder. They're going to be, well, why the heck is that one all broken up? And they're probably going to want to search it and investigate the heck out of it. That's the thing about dungeon building. Anytime you make something kind of out of the ordinary or interesting, everybody wants to explore it. They want to investigate it because there might be a hidden in there, and that makes sense, right? Why not? So I kind of made a style. Okay, that's not going to work anymore. See, that one's too blunted, so I need a new one. Yeah, there we go. So my style is to kind of have scribbles and cross hatchings, right? Which everybody that's familiar with my maps will recognize this, I'm sure. Yeah. So this takes a little bit of concentration here. I recommend, if you're gonna watch this video, to put on your own music. I can't really play music, so you're better off just playing it and putting my voice over top of it if you want, because if I play, I don't know the ins and outs of music, and it's gone and gotten really complicated because YouTube and Twitch and all those guys go and take the music off all the time, so I don't really want to go and find out some video I made is no good. Not to mention, if I add the music now, then I wouldn't be able to go in and take it out after. So maybe someday I'll investigate the ins and outs of using music, but for now, because I see people all the time do it, I just don't know how they do it. So I just know it's really difficult with copyright and all that kind of stuff. So this is just adding the inks in. Once I'm done this, I'll take it and I'll color it all in, which is, believe it or not, the part that takes the longest. The inking, it's faster. Color is a bit of a pain to do. Okay, so yeah, so I came up with this just to have a little bit of my own take on things. Kind of a variation of a crosshatch, just to give them their own look. It's I came up with a drawing style very similar to this in a drawing I did for a friend, which that drawing unfortunately is no longer with us. I drew it and framed it and everything, and his wife for some reason threw it out. I guess she didn't like it. But anyway, so I don't really have an example of it anymore, but it used something similar to this. So when I was looking at dungeons, my option was to go with the crosshatch, which I know is extremely popular. Some very well-known cartographers like to use crosshatches, and so I just thought, well, maybe I'll revisit that thing that I did for that drawing. And it wasn't exactly like this, what I did for it. I would actually like to try and do a full-on what I did for it, but it hasn't quite formulated in my head how to do it. And also, I've been doing this for so long, I kind of don't want to change up the style too much. So quite a few people have said that they like this style. So, you know, why fix what ain't broke? And I think I think it lets me have a really? How did I kick my camera this time? Okay. Gotta quit kicking my camera. Alright. Let me try this again. I'll try not to kick my camera. So there are going to be, in the next bundle, 7 of these maps. Plus then at the $2 level there's going to be some surprises. Plus I'm going to have these maps in there, plus the there's going to be black and white version, color version, Roll20 version, print version. Then I'm going to have icons, or not icons, paper minis. I absolutely love making paper minis now. So it's going to kind of be, that's my furnace. You can hear my furnace, right? So that's going to be kind of a, it's going to kind of be a big, big bundle, I think, coming up. And then, which is good because I've taken a while to get this one out. I'll admit it. I was putting out an awful lot of bundles, but I don't know, I have to figure out how some stuff works before I get too crazy. Plus I've got some ideas for some products that I want to do that won't really be Patreon based products. I've got stuff brewing in my head. So I'd like to actually publish some books, so I've got some ideas for some books. Now I'm just rambling. See, this is what I was worried was gonna happen, but yeah. Well, there we go. Kind of a time-consuming process, this thing. But what takes the real time is the coloring and the digitizing, fixing all the, preparing them for all the different formats and stuff. But I don't know why I want to publish some books. I just kind of got the bug. I think there's a bug you can get where you just decide it's time to do a book. So I'm thinking maybe what might be nice is a Kickstarter. The problem is I've read a bunch of negative stuff about Kickstarters and being Canadian, which I am, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, depends how you look at it. But anyway, so the taxes on a Kickstarter for a Canadian are kind of complicated from what I've read and been told. So if somebody pledges, for example, $20 to a Kickstarter, if in the States you can deduct the cost of preparing it, you know, the making of the product and whatever from that, and you have to declare your profits as income. But I'm told, and I don't know how this could possibly be true, but it's just dumb enough that it could be true, unfortunately. And really, I don't know if it's really dead or it's just threatened. No, that one's definitely drying out. So you just, if it starts to dry out, you just don't get as opaque a line as you would if if it weren't drying out, right? And I like a really nice opaque line. Makes it easier for scans and stuff. Opacity is the darkness of the line. You say something's opaque, it just means that it's really dark. Or how do I say it? I don't know. It's not really the darkness of it. It's the strength of it. Yeah, that's it. So you don't have any blurry bits or, you know, faded parts. So then the opacity is strong opacity, right? So a lot of this stuff that I draw when I'm doing my dungeons is not really thought out too much. I just kind of know how I want it to look after doing it for so long. Which, yeah, I'm up to, I'm releasing on social media, I'm up to almost 400 for my maps, which was my original goal when I first started putting in, when I first started releasing maps and stuff. What happened was I was originally doing cartoons and stuff, and I thought when I first started releasing stuff, I was bored, and I thought, why don't I start doing something? So I started releasing cartoons and making cartoons and stuff, and that's really what I thought I was gonna get into. And then the dungeons just kind of happened by accident. I released a few, and they seemed to be quite popular, so I just kept releasing them. But I bought a bunch of little papers. Just a minute, I'll go get them and show you. Edit that part out if I remember. Yeah, you'll get to hear that if I don't. But yeah, these little maps here, and I bought a whole bunch of pads, and I had like 400 of them. So this is what I was originally drawing dungeons on, right? So if some of you have been following my maps for a while, recognize a lot of these. And so I made a commitment to myself to do 400, and at the end of 400 I would reevaluate whether it was worthwhile to continue this craziness. So I'm almost at the 400 mark, which is kind of interesting. So I think maybe that's why I'm thinking about books and stuff, is because I'm still going to be making maps and whatever, but I'm just thinking now. So there's some other projects. Like I finished didn't finish, but I made this new RPG game, which, you know, because that's really what the world needs, is another bloody RPG game. I don't know, but anyway, it was a goal of mine a long time ago to create an RPG game, and I made a big list of goals that I wanted to accomplish, and that's the very last thing. That was the very last thing on that list of goals that I wanted to accomplish, that I had yet to do. Anyway, so now I've done it. I did another one too. I've done a couple actually, but I wanted it to be a fantasy one, and I wanted it to be, you know, like it is. And so I'm pretty pleased with that. I actually finally got that done. That lump in the table is really bothering me. So this is a fold-out table that and I moved my camera, so now my picture is in the middle of that lump, and that's not really good for drawing. It's not really going to mess me up too much. It's just kind of annoying. I don't like the feel of it, so I'm going to maybe have to figure something else out here when I'm done this. I probably won't, though. Yeah, so 400, that's quite a milestone. And some of you will notice, like, I was trying to do a map a day, and I've kind of slowed down with that. And the reason is that there are a lot of cartographers out there, and they spend a long time on their maps. And when you try and do a map a day, you don't really spend a lot of time on the maps. You can't really. There's just no time. And you know, because I also have a full-time job and stuff too, right? I've got a life outside of this. And so it was fun to do it for a long time, and I'm gonna still try and release as many maps as I can when I can. The problem is like I say, it just, you know, when I'm drawing little maps, it's not so hard to do a map a day, right? Because you can see when I was originally doing it, and this was how I was doing it, it was you know, it was more possible. But now I'm doing this a larger format, and what I'm going for is higher quality. You know, not that my maps are low quality, but just I'm spending more time on the maps now, because there are so many people out there that draw maps, and they're beautiful maps, but you know, you need to spend a lot of time on them, and I just feel like I need to spend more time on the maps that I draw. So as a result, I don't really have a map every day to show. So, but I can still post maps that I've made before, and I'll do that. But there we go. I think that's pretty much the outside done. Now time to go in and start doing some more details. I like this smash statue thing. I think I'm gonna do some more of that. I'm not sure why that statue would be smashed and these ones wouldn't. So another thing I'm trying to do is just be conscious of the fact that the statues, I'm giving not a little more, I'm giving a heck. See, that's one of the things, is I can put, for example, like now because I'm spending more time on the maps, I can add a lot more detail, like instead of drawing my statues, you know, like a head and then the shoulders and then some feet like that. Now I can make the statues, you know, a little more detailed, and I think that really, I really like that. I think that looks good, and I want to continue that, but it takes, like I say, it takes longer than a day to draw them, let me tell you. Especially if I'm going to color them and keep making them with for Roll20 and all like that, right? So does not help having an eraser sitting on my paper trying to drag everything down. I might just leave that screw up in there, actually. I kind of like that. because it's sort of that stuff that kind of lets you know that it really was hand drawn, not just drawn on a tablet or something like that, you know. So I don't really have that big a scenario for this dungeon. I don't really have any stories for it. There is a secret passage over here, which you'll notice I don't put a big S and I don't put any indicators. And the reason for that is that a GM might not want to have it there. Maybe it doesn't suit their purposes. Or maybe they do want it there, right? So you can ignore it, you can do. But if I actually put an S there and I make it an actual secret passage, then all of a sudden, you have to incorporate it, right? Basically, like I said, I'm just trying to make the dungeon master's job easier, you know. Like just give you some blank maps and you fill in the details, and you can. And if that's even too much work, which I could understand, people that work every day, it's a lot of time setting up a dungeon, you know, and coming up with scenarios and all that. So these are hopefully a time saver. And but there are random tables and stuff that you can use to set up the monsters and all that kind of stuff, right? Which they're really handy. On my Patreon, I've got in my description there, I've got a couple links to some. I don't know how current it is. I laid them out a long time ago. I assume people probably have their favorite stuff to use, but it was just just to let people know that that was an option to filling stuff out, right? So these are not battle maps, in that I wouldn't recommend printing them out at a battle map scale, a 1-to-1 scale. It's not really made. They're not really meant for that. Look at that, eh? It is starting to wear out. It's too bad. These wouldn't look too bad, because this is actually at about half scale. So if this were twice the size, then so if you printed it out at double the size, it probably would actually come out to about 1 inch, I think. Maybe a little more, maybe 4 times. Yeah, more like 4 times, I think. So here, these are either doorways or archways. And that one, see, worn out. New Sharpie. There, that's nice. See, it's not really good when they dry out like that, because it gets harder to add little fine details, because I don't really touch I don't like to touch the paper too much. And one of the things I like about Sharpies is I can sort of use it like a brush, unless it gets too worn out. Then you have to start pressing harder, and it kind of just changes the way the line looks, you know, which isn't yeah, I'm liking the looks of this one. Yeah. So the battle maps that I draw, I actually do draw those digitally. Because I want them to match up perfectly. These ones now the way that I work these, and I've had, is for Roll20, the way I think they should be used is as encounters, or not, is as preloaded maps instead of using them like tiles or connected maps, so you have one great big dungeon, which frankly a person I don't think should do anyway, because it's a little hard on the computer resources. Oh yay, just banged my camera again. It's a little harder on the resources for people's computers, right? Because you know, Roll20 only works as well as the slowest member. It's kind of like a marching party a bit, right? So if you have great big files, everybody has to load in on their computers some kind of great big mega dungeon or whatever. Although those files can be JPEGs, right? So that's not so bad. If you lower the quality right down, then they aren't that big. But the idea that I would have, the way that I would use these, or I think that they ought to be used on Roll20, is to have them have each map loaded up. So you'd have this map loaded up, let's say, and you'd say, okay, well, we'll put the tokens here and start marching people through to have the adventure. These maps come without a grid too, by the way. So they could come marching through, right? They come all the way through here. They find, oh, there's a secret passage behind this statue here. They go down, they find the stairs down, then you move to the next map, or next, tab it over, and boom, here's the next map. You put them here, and you guys go down the stairs, and then you move end like that. That's how I would suggest using them, rather than trying to like paste them. And then if you use them like if you're going to use them for your own pen and paper game, then that's a different thing altogether. Because you could just add numbers, right? Load it into like Paint or whatever, and drop some numbers and just say, this is number 1, it leads to, or this is A, leads to A here, right? This is B, leads to B on a different map, that kind of thing, right? And yeah, that's how I would recommend it anyway. Just because why not, right? So I just got this web camera, so I hope it's okay. I hope it looks okay. So what I'm doing here is just adding some cross hatches to the corners and stuff. Just to add some detail. Not something I used to add on my maps, but now that I'm spending a little more time on them, I can add these. So, just in the corners, I like to add it, or where there's ought to be some shadows. Okay, well, on my podcast I would normally talk about some books I've read, and since my last podcast I've read probably about 12 books or so. I think I read about 3 books on the way to China and the way back from China. So I'm quite behind. Unfortunately, I don't really remember books if I don't talk about them right away. I'll forget what the heck they were about. So, did I say about or a boot? But I'll forget what they're about. And but I think I can talk about them. I remember quite a few. The one book that that I'll talk about right now is this one, Wool by Hugh Howley. I read it, and I really enjoyed it. It's not it wasn't, it's got a utilitarian kind of writing style, what's his name, that guy that shot himself. Yeah, now see, when I try and remember things, this is when things are going to get difficult because I'm busy here drawing. What was his name? Drew, the guy that wrote oh boy. Anyway, the writing style in the book is adequate to tell a story anyway. So, and there wasn't anything too terribly awful or anything about it, so I enjoyed it from that perspective. But I do really like terribly well written books. I really enjoy them. But it was all right. It was good. But the story, I really enjoyed the story, and the idea behind the story was kind of something that I thought would be really a fun sort of setting for a science fiction kind of game. Maybe like a person could use Traveller for it, say, or they could use Powered by the Apocalypse would be absolutely perfect for it. Or let's go really old school here, and Gamma World, something like that would work really well. And for the game, and the setting of it is sounds like music somewhere. The setting of it is basically that there are these huge silos that are housing large populations. They never said how large the populations were, and that was like the idea was that they would go down many levels and it could take days to walk down them. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to try and spoil the books, any books that I talk about for people, but I might, and if I do, I'm sorry, it's accidental. I'm going to try not to give anything away. But anyway, so you go down these tunnels, and there's all these different levels. Different levels are responsible for different things. And there was some kind of apocalypse, a planned apocalypse, and so people had the ability to make these things before the destruction actually happened. So there's these populations that are alive in these things, and the outside world has become incredibly toxic, and you actually need a spacesuit or some kind of a suit in order to walk out. Okay, this does have spoilers in it, can't be helped. So you need a spacesuit or something in order to walk outside, and is the idea. And so these pods have been around for a long time, and they've forgotten about each other. So they don't know each other exist. So it's almost like planets. I mean, you need all this environmental suit and everything to get from one of these silos to another silo. There's destruction of cities and stuff in between. You could have mutants living in those, or all kinds, maybe killer robots living in them. Maybe the PCs in their silo need equipment, so they have to go out and find equipment or find food, right? and so the players could you know uh, uh, base their adventures on that, and or the GM could base the adventures on that kind of scenario, and I think it would be a really fun setting, kind of an apocalypse kind of deal. Some of the stuff that didn't make sense to me in the book, but you know, I mean, it's just a you know, a fantasy, right? A science fiction. So I mean, it doesn't have to be that technical, but I kind of think these things too far. So the thing that bothered me is that you know, what would the birth rate be of the people inside these pods? I mean, wouldn't they be running out of population? Because I mean, you can't have, well, maybe they were huge. Maybe they had tens of thousands of people. Maybe that was the idea behind it. I'm not sure, but it in fact, that might be what the intention was. I mean, the actual population size wasn't really talked about, but I mean, just to like the people inside had forgotten what the pods were even built for, you know. So obviously, presumably, they had been there for a few generations and long enough to have forgotten what the purpose of their being there was, and so my thinking there is, like, for a language, for example, you need a population of at least 100,000 people to keep a language alive, right? So one of the things that might be kind of interesting to do in the game would be to have, you know, to kind of acknowledge that and have the different people in the different pods speak different languages, or at least have trouble communicating. Perhaps the languages have all devolved into creoles or something. A creole is a combination of a couple of languages. It's a simplified version of a language. There's also pidgins languages. So, you know, perhaps they speak something like that, because and so the way you could do that, simulate that, is just have made up words or slang, right? You know, like instead of fighters, there might be, you know, or could have jackers, or you know, they lost the word for fighters, so they call them thugs, or bolters, or no, you can't use that because that's from, I mean, you can use it, but you know what I'm saying, something along those lines. Okay, I really like the cross hatching on the edges there. I didn't do that on the other map. I'm gonna have to do that. See, this is what I mean. This is the attention to detail that just isn't possible if you're gonna do a map every single day and keep your day job. And I'm not in any position to not have a day job, so I am going to this pen is not a Sharpie. Yeah, so I think that would make a really, really, really exciting and fun little campaign adventure. You know, especially if you add a whole bunch of you know, monsters and stuff outside, and you have to keep And you could have some kind of overarching thing, you know, like uniting the different colonies or something like that. Your players could have some kind of ultimate goal, or maybe there's something. Maybe combine it with Terminator, you know, so that there's some kind of killer robots or something, and that the players could ultimately save the world by getting rid of them. I mean, maybe the environment's so bad out because the robots have decided that humans are obsolete, and the best way to terminate them is to get rid of the atmosphere. I mean, that's pretty much what we're doing to ourselves anyway. So let's say the robots decide to help us out, and so maybe the player character base is close to one of these pollution. Ooh, I kind of like that idea. One of these pollution creating places, or maybe it's like they have. Oh, that would be kind of interesting too. Maybe these robots have decided to exterminate the human race because they're obsolete, and so no, they wouldn't release radiation. I was thinking they could release radiation into the atmosphere or something. That would be kind of fun, but radiation affects machines too, so they wouldn't like that. But they might be emitting some kind of poison gas that's turning the atmosphere toxic, because it's not like the robots are going to see any value in birds and animals and stuff, right? I mean, there's no point. Silicone-based life forms are not going to benefit from an ecosystem. That's sort of what we need to survive. So it could be the silos. Maybe that's the great apocalypse that happens, you know, is these robots' sentience decided to obliterate mankind by creating pollution. And so if you needed an overall story arc, that could be the story arc, so the PCs could actually start recovering the Earth from these diabolical machines. Actually, I kind of like that. I actually kind of want to run that now. It'd be kind of fun. And the powered by the apocalypse system, that's easy enough. I'll make it for my game system. How about that? Sure, that'll work. I actually made one called Sec 7, which was sort of my first run at the current RPG system I have right now. So I might go back and just redo that. I always say this stuff, I might go back. You know, the thing is, I don't really... I'm drawing so much and whatever. I don't know when I figure I'm going to have time to go back and do all this stuff. You know, that's the tricky bit, isn't it? Having the time to do all this stuff that I want to do. But anyway, that's wool. I thought that was a pretty neat idea. So the book I'm currently reading, I started it last week, and is this one, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wao, I don't know. Anyway, just about done it, but I'm not completely done it, so I don't think I can do too many spoilers with it. But one of the things this book is well written. This book is a delight to read. The guy's got a great style. It's humorous. You know, it's not just sort of a matter of fact storytelling, but he's got a really nice style. I'm very much enjoying it from that perspective. But this book is about well, it's hard to explain what it's about. Actually, it's kind of like a family history, but it's also it's also a bit of a history lesson about Santo Domingo, and the characters are from Santo Domingo, and it's kind of a explaining explaining what life is like there, what it was like there in the past. Maybe a bit of what it's like there now. Although I think the book only gets to about the 90s. But the author's got actually kind of a literary style, so I really like that. Really like that. And in there, he's got lots of sort of geek references, which I love. He references Lord of the Rings all the time, and actually references Dungeons and Dragons, and he mentions the game Aftermath in there. He's got all kinds of neat references to geekdom, which I really enjoy. Oh, that would be my phone. And which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed it with such a awesome writer. I mean, he's really good, and so I really liked seeing those references, literary like work. But I don't have, as far as RPG games go, my takeaways from it, it's such a brutal game, such a brutal book, and I really, the characters go through so much heartache, and just it's really awful to think that people in reality have gone through this stuff, and I know they have. It's awful, right? So I know most people don't like that level of realism in their game, and personally I do like it, but I know better than to think other people do. The vast majority actually don't. In fact, one of my last game groups, that was something that that I had a bit of a conflict with one of my players, because he wanted everything to be kind of fluffy, like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something like that, and I like to have I like the grit of real world. The reason I like it is because I like to explore things with role-playing games. I'm not really a fan of escapism. I kind of, in my opinion, that's what Star Wars is for. So if I want to escape, I'll just watch Star Wars or some other thing on TV. For me, I picture role-playing games as a chance to explore the world around me through emulation. I get to test out ideas and theories with role-playing games and see how they work and what they look like. I really like that. Cross-hatching. Oh my god, that is awful because it is very time-consuming. Here we go. Oh well. What do you do? I'm gonna have to go back over that other map because I didn't cross-hatch in the corner, the entire thing like this. But I really like that look. It adds a really nice shadow to the outsides. Yeah, so for me that's what I like. For me, D&D is, role-playing games is more like an art form, but not an art form for escapism, but an art form for emulation. And so sometimes that can upset some players that I may have, because they want to escape, and sometimes my D&D worlds can be a little too gritty for their tastes, And I understand that, I totally get that. It makes sense, if you're there because you want to escape something, then yeah, you don't want the world brought into your game. So like one of the things that kind of bothered this player was that I had the alleyways in my cities were all covered in shit because, or poop. Sorry, this is a right, because that's the Middle Ages. That's what back alleys were. They were just places where everybody dumped their garbage, and there was no garbage collection or anything like that. And also, like, you could get hit by stuff being thrown out windows if you weren't careful. So I had that. Plus, I had, you know, one of the entertainments was boiling people in oil. You know, because that was one of the main entertainments. Plus, they had cat fights and all of that sort of stuff. So it was quite horrendous, as you can well imagine. And this player didn't like that much. They thought it was better to have, to not, you know, to not bother with reality or whatever. Not that a fantasy world's really real, because it, you know, it's not a real world, obviously, but so a person has to decide how far they want to go with that in their own with their own game, you know. And I'm willing to go quite far. So from that perspective, I kind of found this book really fascinating because there was such darkness in it, you know. So being able to read about these hideous experiences that people have been through and these things that have happened to people is a way gives me a reserve to draw on to use that in my own game, right? But like I say, well, a lot of people maybe don't like that kind of idea, and okay, I am really liking this cross-hatching business, but what a pain in the butt. Wow. So I'm going to need to go through on this map and add it too, unfortunately, which I thought I was done this map, but apparently I'm not. But anyway, I am going to finish this map now. So some of the stuff in here is just, you know, like I say, it's a pretty rough, let me just think here, what do I need to do? I need to add stones, I need to add my signature. Now, on this one I added my whole signature, on this one I don't know if I should or shouldn't, that's the good one. Now I have to try and keep track of which pen, see, look at this. These are the pens I have. Which one is the new pen? Believe it or not, your guess is as good as mine. I think it's this one. Okay. I hope it's that one. So I am going to just... Now, I wonder if I should just stick with just signing... Or if I should put the whole name. I don't know. Sorry, just concentrating here for a bit. So I get a lot of that out of books that I've read is stuff that I can use for games that way, and this has a lot of that. I mean, it's got a lot of really awful things, you know. So one of the things is they have yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to talk about it. Well, I guess that's what I'm here for, isn't it? I don't know how to approach this thing, because it would be, you know, odds are upsetting a few people. But you know, and a lot of people, like for example slavery, a lot of people don't want slavery in their game because it's just something that they aren't able to deal with. You know, it's too upsetting to them, and I totally understand that. Totally get it. I have no problem with it. You know, putting it in my game, because it's just been such an element of human existence for so long. For personally, I don't understand how a medieval kind of world like that could exist without it. It doesn't make any sense to me, because it's been such a part of human existence. I mean, every culture throughout history has had it, unfortunately. And I don't think that just because it might be in your game, it means that a person condones it or is happy with it. It's just that how do you do a proper simulation of anywhere without it? You can't. I mean, it's just, if it's not there, it's not realistic. And if realistic is sort of something that you kind of want to go for, then you would have to have it in there, right? And so I just add some dots to this, because when it's just black and white, it helps the eye pick out negative and positive space a little easier, because humans are remarkably well adapted at seeing patterns, and even just spaced out dots like this, believe it or not, your eye will just pick it out right away. That was, and it will make the positive and negative spaces stand out more or less. Okay, there we go. I'm done this one. Let me think. Have I forgotten anything? I don't have room to draw a skull on there anywhere, or any kind of little things. I've got one little I like to put little things like that in the maps. I think I like this signature. I think I'll just stick with it, although it doesn't really convey who I am. But oh well. What do you do? Yeah, so but I totally understand why somebody wouldn't want that in their game. It makes complete sense to me. But it also makes sense to me why they would. You know, I think it depends on it. I think it depends on your view. I mean, is D&D emulation, or is role-playing game, is it emulation, or is it escapism? You know, just the mere word fantasy kind of suggests that it's going to be escapist. But you know, there are lots of writers, say like in fantasy books, that were darker, you know, in texture than that, and were more emulation than, say, fantasy. And fantasy to me doesn't really suggest escapism. What it suggests to me is just alternative setting, wherein wherein you have elves and goblins or something along those lines, and they can be stand-ins, or they can be used, they can be manipulated as symbols of other things in your narrative for the game, for exploration and discovery. And you know, because that's what a well-written book is about. A well-written book is about discovery, self-discovery, discovery of the world. It imparts something, it moves you. And I don't see any reason why a game can't do that too. You know, if the GM wants it, or the DM wants it. And that's certainly what I aim for. I aim for to figure things out is what I do. So with my games, or I try to. I'm gonna stop this right now.